Today we're going to be talking about the number one thing that's holding you back from achieving the goals that you want, namely fears. Then we're talking about fear of failure, fear of not passing an exam, fear of failing an assignment, fear of asking somebody out, fear of starting a big project or a business. Any fear is preventing us from taking the action that we need to do to reach our goals. Today we're going to break down fear. What is it? Where is it coming from? But most importantly, we're going to explain you a fear setting exercise that's going to help you go through some of your fears, think about the worst case scenarios, but also come up with an action plan that's going to help you succeed and face the fears and do it anyway. My name is Tom Vorstler, also known as the Study Coach, and I help students, working professionals, entrepreneurs with science-backed learning, time management, and mindset methods such that they can excel in their academics and professional career without sacrificing their mental and physical health. Today's topic, fears. Let's dive in. So let's first start to understand what is fear. Fear is in essence a defense mechanism from your brain to keep you safe. The only thing your brain cares about is keeping you safe and survive. So what does this mean? Your brain has a part that we call the amygdala, which is responsible for fears. It is going to create certain fears and come up with certain feelings attached to this fear that are holding you back from taking action. Sometimes we call this the fight, flight, or freeze response. Some people have a fight, flight, or freeze response, where a lot of people have a freeze or a flight response, which is often called procrastination. And when people have a fight response, they're actually going to tackle the problem by fighting against it. They are so afraid of something happening that they are going to do something about it. The problem is that most of the fears that we have are not life-threatening. It's not that you are going to pass away from not passing an exam. So let's talk about where fears are coming from in the simplest words. When we were just on this earth, it's like thousands of years ago, the only thing that human beings had to care about was survival. In that time, we created something that we call primal fears. Fears that are associated with potential physical pain or future death. In that time, people only had to care about whether they got eaten by a tiger or a big mammoth would crush them, or they didn't have enough food to survive. These days, we don't have to worry too much about that. This fear is less common. Of course, there's still people who are in similar situations, but the majority of the fears that we have these days are intellectual fears, fears that we created ourselves. A fear of spiders, a fear of heights, and indeed fear of failure, etc. Those are all intellectual fears. However, the brain does not know the difference between one of those primal fears, potential pain or future death, and a fear of a spider. Your brain will associate the fear of a spider or the fear of failing an exam with potential pain or death, and that's when it starts to feel really tense in your body, and you're like, I might better not do this because there might be negative consequences to that. And that's when a lot of people flight or they freeze and then they procrastinate. So I want you to understand that before I'm going forward, because this is some fundamental information that a lot of people don't know about fears and why there are certain things holding them back, but I think it's crucial for you to know. How does that then reflect in future situations? Let's say you failed an exam in the past. The next time that you're going to retake this exam, your brain is going to associate probably studying or taking that exam with a failure. And with that failure, there were some negative emotions attached. Like it will project future pain into the moment right now that makes us uncomfortable. And then we want to numb those feelings by scrolling on our phone or watching Netflix. All right. So now you understand where this is coming from. One exercise that you can do to overcome this, it's something that we call fear setting exercise. And it's developed by Tim Ferriss. He wrote the 4-Hour Workweek book. The exercise is really simple. I'm going to explain it to you, and I want you to pause the video in between if you're really serious about solving this issue, and then do the exercise, because this is the only way how you're going to overcome overcome it. Again, I'm a coach. I'm not here to let you just watch this video, be inspired, and don't do anything about it. I want you to actually start taking action on creating the life that you want and overcoming the fear. I'm going to give you a roadmap right now how to do that. So the first thing that you want to do is to define your fear. So you're going to write down really clearly what your fear is. It can be indeed failing the retake. It can be starting a business. Be as specific as possible with what your fear is. This is step number one. Define and describe the fear that you have. Feel free to pause the video right now, write it down, and then hit play again when you're ready. Number two is that you're going to list out the worst case scenario. If this fear is actually materializing, if it's actually happening, what are the worst case scenarios? So if you fail the exam, you might be expelled from the program. Like I had that fear in my first year of my university, and it meant that if I were to fail the retake, I wasn't allowed to proceed in the second year, and I had to start finding a new field of study. My response was fighting. I was going to fight so hard with all of the learning methods that I teach you on our platform that I was going to succeed. I want you to think about what is the worst thing that can happen, but this will also help you to understand that most likely a lot of the fears that we have aren't as bad as we think. When we think about what can possibly go wrong if we start that business or that side hustle next to our studies, the worst thing that can happen actually is that you learn a lot about yourself. Or maybe you are a bit embarrassed and friends tell you like, hey, why did you start that project? But is that really that bad? So it can go two ways in this exercise. In step number two, write down the worst case scenarios. Either think about really what is the worst case, or kind of like rationalize it and figure out, is it really that bad? Feel free to again pause the video, write this down, and then continue when you're ready. Now, step number three is that you're going to think about how you can prevent the worst case from happening. So I want you to list out every single thing that you can do to make sure that fear is not going to materialize. This could be reaching out for help. Apparently, we coach and help people with their problems in studies or their career, so maybe reach out for help. But if you want to do it yourself, you can look at free resources, look at YouTube videos about better learning methods, look at free guides that tell you about how to improve your time management skills. You can reach out for a course-specific tutor and somebody who helps you exactly with a course of mathematics, for example. You can find accountability partners, you can find study groups. There's so many things that you can do that will prevent the worst case scenario from happening. So again, pause the video. I want you to list out at least 10 things that can possibly help you to prevent that from happening. Step number 4 might be a bit strange, but we're going to do it anyway. It is going to think about how we can recover if the worst case scenario happens, right? So if the worst case scenario happens, what are, let's say, 5 to 6 things that we can do at that moment to either solve the problem that we got ourselves into at that moment, or to think in advance and be like, okay, if this happens, these are going to be my next steps. For example, if the side hustle or the project fails, you can still find another job. If the study or if the university is going to kick you out of the program, there's still a bunch of other programs that you can take. Then the worst case scenario is maybe that you learned a lot about yourself, you dove into a ton of methods and resources, and you got very much more skilled, but the outcome is not where you want to be yet. We emphasize on the yet because then you can start thinking about that. Now, the last step that you want to do, step number 5, is that you're going to think about the consequences of not taking action as well as the consequences of taking action. Think about the consequence of inaction on a 6-month period, a 1-year period, and a 3-year period. If you're not going to solve this problem, if you're not going to face this fear, where will you be 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 3 years from now? And I want you to be really clear and specific about it. Is that where you want to be? Now, I also want you to think about, what if you do start to take action and you solve these problems and you face this fear? Where will you be 6 months from now, 1 year from now, 3 years from now? What does that look like? So I want you to think in both scenarios, because then you will see the actual difference. often the cost of doing nothing is far worse than facing your fear and taking the risk and doing it anyway. Now, why does this method work and why is it so powerful, and why did I want you to ride along with it? This exercise removes the power of the fear, because we start to really think about, okay, what is the fear really? What is the worst case? And what can we do about it? So we also come up with an actionable plan to face the fear. Now it's time to execute on the fear. But with the information I provided you in the beginning, you are now more aware of why you feel a certain way when you are going to start this daunting or this fearful task. But now you can think about it more logically and be like, oh, actually now my mind is trying to trick me into a flight or freeze mode, but there's actually nothing that can go really wrong in this situation as long as I take the action. That way we face the fear in more logical thinking, and it's easier to take action on it. This is why you see, for example, a lot of people are being very successful. It's not that they don't have fears. I had fears when I started posting on Instagram. Right now, I still get trash comments and I'm still afraid that people don't like me or they say something about me, but it's not going to hold me back from posting and sharing the value that we want to share, because I know that I'm also helping thousands of people with the tips and tricks that we share. Fear is always going to be there, but the people who faced it and they work on it, they will eventually get to the life that they want, because one of my coaches told me this: the treasure is in the cave that you are afraid to enter. So it's like the fear that you've been avoiding the most, that is where your success lies. Know that fear isn't bad. It's always going to be there. You have to step outside of your comfort zone. And if this video was helpful and you did the exercise, please let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, what your experiences were, and how it made you feel after doing the exercise. If that was useful, make sure to hit subscribe. And if you want to hear more no BS advice about things that you can do or how you can work on yourself, make sure to check out my latest video. And I hope you have an amazing day. I hope you are going to face your fears, slay the demons, and then I will see you on the side of success.